Hello! In this video, I am going to show you how to build a super simple, but super functional, super smelter. Okay, maybe it's not a super smelter. I mean, that's a super smelter right there. But this design uses as little resources as possible without sacrificing any of the basic functionality of a beefier build. And speaking of resources, this is everything you'll need to build a 10 furnace array which will smelt at a speed of 1 item a second. Just a quick little note, these wool blocks can be 23 of any building block you'd like to use, but I'll use colored wool in this case just to make the tutorial a little bit clearer, as well as a handful of any temporary block you'd like to use. But with all that said, pause the video, take a screenshot, get all of your materials together, and then let's get building. So once you've got all your materials together, the first step is to place down the barrel facing forwards with a block on top of it. You can then put a hopper off to the side feeding into the barrel, and then proceed to place down 11 building blocks coming out from that hopper. And once you get to the other end, you can place down one of your temporary blocks, put another building block on top of that, and then break your temporary block. Once you have this all in place, your next step is going to be to come over to your hopper and place down a powered rail on top of it. You can also put a hopper minecart on top of that, and then come out 5 regular rails, then 1 more powered rail, followed by 4 more regular rails, and finally 1 more powered rail. And you should now have something that looks like this. If everything looks good so far, your next step is going to be to come up to the end here, place down a temporary block on top of that building block, and then come out with all 10 of your furnaces in a row. Once those furnaces are in place, you can come back to the end and break your temporary block, and you should now have something that looks like this. So if everything looks good so far, your next step is going to be to come around to the back and place down hoppers into the back of each of your furnaces. Once those are all in place, you can place down 2 more of your building blocks like this. Next, you can put down another temporary block off of this building block you just put down, as well as a permanent block on top of it, and then break your temporary block, and you should now have a little diagonal L shape like this. Once that's in place, you can hop up on top of your blocks here and follow the same pattern we did on the last row of 1 powered rail followed by 5 regular rails, another powered rail, 4 more regular rails, and finally 1 last powered rail to finish it off. Once you have all these rails in place and you're at this end, you can place down another temporary block right here off the edge of your last hopper, and then place another building block on top of it and remove the temporary block once more. And at this point, your furnace should be looking something like this. Next, you're going to want to get up on top of your furnaces and place a hopper facing downwards into each of them. And once all of those hoppers are in place on the top, you'll want to follow the same pattern you did right here by placing down 2 regular building blocks, and then you can get up with some temporary blocks and put another building block on top. And it should look something like this, and this is another area where having the different colors of wool kind of makes it easier to tell what's going on. And once again, once these are up here, the same pattern of powered rail, and this can tend to happen. Let's see if I can get it to fix. Typically what I'll do is put a powered rail, and I can break this one right here, place down a regular rail, then a powered rail and regular rail, and it's all messed up. Alright, and the trick to get this to work without that happening is to place down a regular rail first, then your powered rail, and then you can continue on with the same pattern. Like I said, a powered rail, 5 regular rails, a powered rail, 4 more regular rails, and a powered rail. You've done this 3 times now. Congratulations! Now that you're back at this end, you'll want to put down a temporary block here, and then your other building block on top, and break the temporary block again. And at this point, your design should be looking a little something like this, with the same pattern on the top row of hoppers as on the bottom, but just at a diagonal from each other. Now you'll want to get up on top of your rails and place your last 2 building blocks up here, 1 right there, and 1 on top of this rail here, so that it floats above this bottom rail, and is right off to the left of this rail if you're looking down to the opposite end. And now that these are in place, you can come back to the other end and put in your chests. You want to put them so that they're overhanging off of the edge, so that they're covering up your powered rails like this. And now you can put in your other 2 minecarts. And that is the construction all done, so now all that's left to do is give this thing some power. First lever is going to go on the bottom of this block here that is right above your first minecart, and that is the one you will use to turn everything on. Once that one is in place, your last 4 levers are going to go around the back on these building blocks back here, and this is another area where having these color-coded blocks can help, but if you didn't use separate blocks, you're just going to want to power on each of the blocks that are on your powered rails. So you'll get one here, one on the rail above it, and same thing down at the other end. And now that all the levers are in place, you can see if we flip this one right here, they will all get sent off at the same time, and they will just continue to run back and forth forever until you flip this lever off, at which point they will just return back to their loading stations. So whatever you want to smelt will go in this chest right up here, whatever you want to use for fuel will go in this chest back here, and then when it's all done, it will get picked up by this minecart right here, and deposited into this barrel right here. And we use a barrel here because a chest would not be able to open with this block of wool on top of it. And if you wanted a little bit more space here and did want to use a double chest instead of a barrel, you can just put it down right there, get rid of the barrel, and replace the hopper facing out with a hopper going in this way. And that would do the same thing, but it would stick out 1 block farther, so if that annoys you, you might just stick with the barrel. And with all that said, a few quick notes on the design of this system. The first is that typically you'll see a 3rd row of hoppers right along the bottom of the furnaces. I opted for rails with a minecart on this design since it will use far less wood and iron at the expense of a little bit of gold and redstone dust for the powered rails. You'll also typically see, in place of these blocks with levers on them, full redstone blocks. However, that uses 9 pieces of redstone, as opposed to the stick, cobblestone, and whatever random block that goes into this. So again, it's just a cheaper option, and I wanted to design this to be as efficient as possible for early game design. And if you're not so early in the game, you can also check out this tutorial I have on this design that I made, which has basically no compromises to it, but is very heavy on redstone dust, gold, quartz, just iron, just everything. It's so resource exhaustive. However, it does not sacrifice on anything, so if you're looking for a more complex design, you can check this one out up in the corner or down in the description below. But with all that said, I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you did, give it a like, and well, you know, that thing down there, yeah, you know. Okay, bye!